Maaike Dufour, and this is not working. Oh yeah, here we go. So I'm passionate about user-friendly conversation design, foreign languages and cultures. I've been a bit around Europe during my childhood, so I speak about 4.5 languages. So that's why I feel very passionate about getting chatbots and voice bots across the sea, but correctly. So 6 billion. 6 billion is the number of people in the world that don't speak English. So that's the number of people you'll need to design your international bot for. I mean, that's a lot of people. So when you're designing for other countries, a lot of things can go wrong. So that's why it's the tube exploding. So I'm going to tell you a story about Tom. So Tom built a 6-person studio in 6 months. He gets there every morning at 9:30. So if we say that in the UK, that would mean that Tom has actually built a design studio where he goes every morning at 9:30 to be a very efficient CEO. On the other hand, if you would translate that without any context into Dutch, Tom would have constructed a flat for 6 persons, where he only goes at 8:30, after having spent the night, I don't know where. So my point is that if you don't have the context of the bot, if you just get it to a translator, you're going to get the meaning that they think it has. And some words are the same in different languages, only they don't mean the same thing. So, by a show of hands, who knows what a Chinese volunteer is? No one. I was hoping for just at least one person. Well, speaking of which, I will be needing 5 volunteers to make my next one. So, anyone? Yeah, come over. Nice. 2 more. Okay, come on. You can stand in a row.
We should stand in height order.
Yeah, so I'm going to tell the first person what a Chinese volunteer is, and whisper it in his ear, and then he'll pass on the message to all the way to Tom, and we'll see how we go from there.
Nice. Okay.
Chinese volunteer is a Belgian expression for someone you delegate a task to that nobody wants to do.
What I initially said was, A Chinese volunteer is a person that is designated to do a task that no one wants to do. Well, it's quite okay. I mean, the meaning didn't get too far off. So you're very efficient. Much to my demise, because I really wasn't going to go wrong. But anyway, a bit of information got lost during this entire process. And obviously, when you're going through a transcreation process, if you don't do it yourself, if you delegate it to a translator or another conversation designer, you're going to give him documents, and they're going to read it, and they're going to interpret. You can go. No, you just stay here and be a little mini audience. That would be nice. Okay, so the Chinese volunteer is a person that you designate to do something you don't want to do. That's in Belgium, it is the case. In France, on the other hand, this is called the Arabic telephone. So that goes to show that expressions really differ from one country to another, and that even some words or expressions don't exist in some languages. There are even languages that don't have a word for yellow. So, as you can see, this is a bot on a yellow background. Or is it? Because if you go to France, people will tell you this is a boat. We talk about chatbots in France, and not about chatbots. That is because we have a French word that it goes whoa instead of robot. So if you talk about a bot, they might look a bit puzzled, but if you talk about a boat, they don't mean a ship, they mean an actual bot. So you can go two ways with this. You can either design cross-culture and make a conversation that works for any country, anywhere. Or you can do locale-specific conversation design, which is more personal, a lot more fun when you're a designer. And it gives a more engaging touch to your bot. So I like to say, be a voice, not an echo. That doesn't mean be a voice and not like the echo double, but it means even if you transcreate or translate a skill or a bot into another language, you should try to give it a bit of a personal touch as a designer, and not just translate word to word what was in the original bot. So, how do you make international magic happen? So you've got this great bot, it's doing wonderfully well with your users in the UK or US or whatever. And you really want to take it across the sea, and you want it to do as well as the original one. So how can you do this? First of all, by understanding the magic. Then you explore the lands, and then you hit the lab. So what I mean by understand the magic? I mean that the person that is going to transcreate your bot needs to really understand what your bot is about. It shouldn't just be handing over documents, translating intents, entities, and utterances. They should really know what the experience feels like to the users and try and transcreate the exact same feeling. So this feeling is really important because your users will not be the same because they have a different culture, they have a different history, they have a different background. But the feeling, the core message of your bots should still be clear and should still feel the same way. It should still be your bot and not just another variant of it. So how do you go about exploring the lands? That's a matter of research. Who are your users abroad? What is their culture? What is their history? What is their vocabulary? And does your use case even make sense in that particular country or in that particular language? They might not even need your bot. So this is a funny story about GFK. And at a particular time in history, he went to Germany and he really wanted to express all his empathy with the people of Berlin. And he said, "Ich bin ein Berliner," which means, if you translate it literally, I'm a jelly donut. And you might think, okay, he made a mistake. Only he didn't. Because he asked just before going on the stand to his German translator, what should I say? And he had different choices. He could say, "Ich bin Berliner," which would mean, I live in Berlin, which wouldn't be correct. He could say, "Ich bin wie ein Berliner," which would mean I'm like a jelly donut, which wouldn't make any sense either. So the translator, on purpose, said you should say, "Ich bin ein Berliner," because it was the closest thing to saying I am with you. So that goes to show that sometimes grammar will not be on your side, and you have to get a bit of empathy with the people you're designing for to know what the good trade-off is. Is it literally translating, or is it getting the message across? So yeah, once all of that has been said and done, you need to go back and actually do something about this. What is your persona like? Is your persona internationally okay? Or is it very locally tainted? Have you designed an Englishman in New York? Or do you need to get your persona into a more local state of mind? So obviously, your bot still needs to be your bot. What you're going to change is not its architecture, it's not its flow, it's just these little ingredients that make your bot local. I mean, some vocabulary in your bot might be very culturally tainted without you even knowing it. I was working on a skill for labworks, and there was like one sentence that was about X factor, and I asked them, what is X factor anyway? Because in France, X factor is not a thing. It just aired for like one season and ages ago. So we had to take it out. But on the opposite side, with all the research you've done about the local culture, local vocabulary, local grammar, you can spice things up by adding what we call in France some couleur locale. And finally, and I mean, I'm a UX designer at heart, so couldn't leave this out. Do user testing with real users from the country you're designing for. That way, you can really make international bot magic happen. Thank you very much for listening. If you have any questions.
Any questions? All right, one over the back. I have to say that Maaike has been absolutely fabulous working with us to turn from spreadsheets or translations into a proper transcreation, so I can highly recommend.
Hi.
Hello.
Could you give an example of a big cultural difference that you found in Chatbot?
Yes, actually I can. I've been designing a chatbot for a hotel chain that uses as a persona a butler, which to everyone in the UK would mean sense, wouldn't it? I mean, we all know what a butler is. Only in France, we don't have this butler culture. We don't have this mental model of a butler persona at all. So that was quite challenging because you need to transcribe that into a French person with the same stamina as butler, only while not having people with mental models of a butler. So yes, that was quite difficult and challenging. Anyone else?
Down there.
Down the back.
Hello.
Hello.
So you've used examples of this country, which is UK, and you've tried to use it with other countries, and mostly France.
Yeah.
There have been some examples of Germany. However, if you were to take this worldwide, my big question there is what's the impact on cost, what's the impact on resources, and how do you work with that? I'll give you some of the answers. You might be a technology company which is actually looking to freelance or develop these propositions where you will actually sell it to other companies, or you're a company which is willing or looking to go into other locations. Where do you draw the line? Because it's a big web that you've created here.
Well, you draw the line wherever you want to draw it, but I would say I always put the users first, so probably I would go to any cost to keep them happy. But obviously, as a business person, you can't. So I would go into one locale, do a really, really good job, and then see what happens next in the other countries. Because quality always wins over cost in the long run.
So, thank you very much for that. That's very sort of value in terms of what you're trying to say. But going back to my question, it depends on where you are. So if you're in London, you've got a massive variety of people, just in London, forget about UK. But if you go to a small city or a small place somewhere else in the world, it might be very different. So are you saying it actually boils down to not the technicality, but actually the business case?
It does.
Okay, thank you.
Just going to shimmy along here, excuse me. No.
Thanks. Just wanted to watch you do that. You talk a lot about kind of cross-cultural, but have you looked at cultural differences within a country? So obviously a lot of the stuff that's relevant in London is in Newcastle and Scotland or whatever. So have you looked much at that as well?
Actually, I have looked a lot across culture and not like in melting pots, like big cities, so I have not. But might be interesting though to elaborate on that.
Anyone else? Last one? No? Thank you so much.
You're welcome.